want to start by telling you that this is a very fun lecture, and it took me a lot of time to put it together. Not because it's difficult, but because there's too many things going on right now. We live in a really interesting time where, as I was putting together slides and doing this, and then I said, oh, there's a new, better way to do it, and I'd add a new slide, and then the next day, another thing. So it was one of these things. So everything I'm telling you now will be out of date in about 6 months. That's okay. The point of today is not to tell you the particulars of any one system. I'm going to show you a lot of things, but I want you to take away the more general notion of using image AI to generate in interesting ways. And what are the ideas that are going to stick around for a year or two? That's what I want you to take away. And we'll talk about what those ideas I think are at the end. So let's get started by our news. Oops, I forgot my news slide. Oh well. Today we're going to be talking about GenAI. And this is a ChatGPT as of a couple of weeks ago. Ask it to create a picture of an elephant, of an empty room with no elephant in it. And of course it does exactly the opposite of that. This is a warning to everyone, right? One of the things that's really interesting about image AI is that we can create remarkable things. Dogs in houses made of sushi. And you go, yeah, it's amazing that it does that at all. And so you don't critique it. You don't critique it. And so we see hallucinations in image gen AI all the time. But nobody cares. It's an interesting aspect of this technology. So another thing that's happened is that in the past couple of weeks, Google has started offering this service. So as you probably know, Google's, one of their big revenue streams is putting ads on your website. This is called AdSense. So you can subscribe as a web publisher and say, I've got this content, Google, here's a little spot, put in this iframe, I want you to put an ad. They're doing the same thing except with Gemini chat contexts. So the idea is that you will be chatting with Gemini, usually through another service, through another website. So your website may be a medical consultation website, and you're using Gemini to power the back end. And so Gemini will say, hey, here's a really great medicine you should try, or here's a really great doctor who I'd recommend. So all of a sudden, the ethical boundaries get very blurry here. Google says they will mark all of these very, very clearly. But I will tell you, having worked there for years, that the notification symbol has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and grayer and fainter. And so this is going to be an issue going forward. So let's talk about this. Today we're going to talk about images generally. And this is the way I think about this is another mechanism, another AI mechanism for augmenting our intelligence, for doing kinds of image generation that, frankly, I can't do. I can sketch okay, and I'm a calligrapher, so I can calligraph all that stuff pretty well. But all of a sudden, now we've got these amazing tools. How do they work? What can we do with them? So I'm not going to teach you how Stable Diffusion works. I'm just going to show you a couple of quick slides to give you a gestalt, give you the idea how it works. And I found this little video clip from NVIDIA, actually. And it basically shows you the process here. Is there any narration? No. But what's happening here is that basically you can see the forward diffusion process goes from image to a representation, just like we see in LLMs, this high dimensionality thing. And then it diffuses into a kind of a random gray pattern. And then when you run it forward to generate, that's the training process. Then the generation process, you go forward from the gray nook into something that you have described with your words. Okay, so it's very much the same as what we've seen in other mechanisms, except when people first started doing this a few years ago, one of the very first systems was a mechanism called Deep Dream, and it's a standard multi-layer, funnel architecture, the way you know about from other classes. So you've got all this input, and basically each one of these, at the very beginning, is a pixel. And generally, you don't go from a 4K image. You generally go from a reduced image, say a 1K by 1K image, something like that. You go, and then you go through these various levels of processing. And what's interesting about this is that any one point in here, you have an abstraction of all the stuff above it. So this is the high dimensionality aspect of it. Now, one of the key insights that happened was that at Google, there were a bunch of guys working on this, and they thought, what would happen? Oh, yeah, I'm slightly out of order. What would happen if we looked at one of the intermediate layers? And that's where you get the deep dream idea. What's happened here is that imagine that this is a giant network where each pixel maps onto that. So now you go down, boom, 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 4 layers, and you look at the neural net activations as images. And that's what you see. Very hallucinatory image. What this tells us, it's like looking inside an LLM, if you could. Now, because we got this one-to-one mapping of image space to neural network space, you can see that it's hallucinating eyes, or truck cars, or towers, or dog faces, or whatever. These are basically the hallucinated images, very much like we see hallucinations in text. And so the deep dream guys saw this and just went bananas, like, wow, this is amazing, right? What does this tell us? One of the things it tells us is that each one of those individual layers has some interesting notion of what it's been trained on, right? So one of the things this told the guys in Deep Dream is that if you could, for example, train it on a whole bunch of, say, Van Gogh imagery, you can create a representation of the style of Van Gogh, or Rembrandt, or name your favorite person, right? Or a photographer, or of art objects in the world. And then you can run the same process and say, as a prompt, re-render this image, but in the style of. This is one of these basic notions from today's lecture, style transfer. Oh, remember style transfer? We heard that in the audio space a little while ago. This is style transfer in visual space. So style transfer is one of these key ideas. This will still be with you in 20 years, I predict, unlike a lot of ideas. But this is an interesting notion. You can take an image of one input image and describe a style, and you can train it up to be whatever, and then combine the two. So it's lovely. But you can do this. So this has been around for a while, and there's actually several Google Colab notebooks that you can go and experiment with this yourself. Just do the obvious search, you can find it. But you can see what happens here. We've got, we're going to combine, we're going to train on the Andy Warhol images, that one of Marilyn Monroe, and say, what happens when we start to reimagine this, take a slice out of the deep dream architecture, and you start to see Marilyn eyes, or if you start training it on the Guernica, this is the Guernica training image, you can see hallucinations of pieces of Guernica in there. So the style thing means that when it's generating, it's trying to conform with the style elements, which means colors and shapes and angles and all that stuff. So that's what style transfer means here. But now, go forward a couple of years. This is from a couple of years ago, like 2020 or so. Here we're taking those images and combining it with a style. In the upper left, you see clay animation, airbrush style. Somebody defined that. And then you can start to render all these images, the 2 bananas, the flamingo, all in this style. So the style notion, or the style becomes an artifact, a thing you can work with and use. And once you are able to do that, all of a sudden you can go crazy, right? And you can start to apply your style to any image that you've got. So you can see all those things there. So there has been a huge explosion of generative art systems, as you probably have seen. This is one from Stable Diffusion from a couple years ago. That's the prompt. And yes, emojis worked as prompt elements. You know, it does whatever you train it on. And if you train it on emojis, it's going to learn emojis, right? So it's learning the mapping of those symbols or tokens to what happens in the image generation phase. So one of the things I want to point out here is in the style of this guy and this guy, they're both very, very well-known artists in the sort of science fiction realm, right? So that's very, very, it's a technique for getting to prompt like the way you want it. So in effect, what we're doing is saying, render this image of a bomb explosion and a robot and all this stuff in the style of these guys. The question I want you to be thinking about is, when does that veer over into stealing? Okay. So one of the super interesting things for me, having taught this class now for the past 4 or 5 years, is to see how much and how quickly these systems are evolving. So this is just an evolution between, so these are 3 different systems: Stable Diffusion, DALL-E 2, so this is like a year and a half ago, right? And Midjourney producing these things, cherry blossoms, beautiful images, very nice. And I'll show you in a second how it's changed over time. But I wanted you to point out here that even the same prompt for different systems, because they were trained differently, give very different results. Different systems, very different results. What this means for you as a practitioner of the dark digital arts is that you need to understand what all these systems do for you. It's like knowing that if you're a painter, this kind of paint gives you this kind of effect. This kind of brush gives you this kind of stroke. This kind of digital image generation system gives you this kind of thing. What this means is that systems have embedded styles. Okay, question?
But they do change all the time.
They do change all the time, exactly right. Sorry, I didn't do it this way. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So they do change all the time because they keep rebuilding models and they keep changing. So is there a stable diffusion style? Maybe. But will it be true in 5 years? Probably not. But there's a distinct style within each individual system right now. That's a good point. Yeah?
For last slide, so in the style of 2 artists, right?
Here, the prompt is just cherry blossom near Lake Snowing.
So the last slides.
On the previous one, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the style of like a couple artists,
Yes.
does the order matter or it doesn't?
Does it?
Order.
Do the order matter? That's a really good question. I've played around a lot with these systems, and the answer is I don't know. And the reason is, though, because there's so much individual variation from run to run. So if you run this, say, 5 times in a row, you will get 5 different images with exactly the same prompt because of the inherent noise in the beginning. So it starts with this gray pattern and starts to hallucinate the images. So, one thing I found really interesting is the chief scientist from Microsoft gave a talk at Stanford, so I went and I asked him this question, a related question. I said, he was talking about prompt engineering and how to get a great prompt in response to a legal question. And I said, suppose you give exactly the same prompt, but you add the word not in front of it. Does it make a difference? And he said, I don't know. Semantically, that makes a huge difference, right? And I experimented a little bit while I was sitting in the back there, and it turned out to not make any difference whatsoever. Question?
No, I just wanted to add that in many systems, it's actually forbidden to use the
Yep.
reference to certain authors because they just decline to generate it because it violates the copyright. And my friend who's really heavy on that image generation, basically what he does is he uses the references he likes, then he describes the style or even uploads
Correct.
images to
That's the
how
workaround.
describe the style and then insert it like this because right now they advanced in how they protect the authors so that it's not so easy to imitate their
That's
style.
right. But to your point, these systems change all the time. And so I've seen systems say, no, I can't do it in that style. Yes, I can do it in that style. No, I can't do it in that style. Whatever. So as they change their policies and their guardrails, definitely changes like that. But you bring up a really good point about prompt engineering for images like this. If you say something like in the style of Rembrandt, Rembrandt's out of copyright, that's fine. You chose a more recent artist, might say, like Andrew Wyeth, famous artist, American artist, might say, no, I'm not going to do it. But you can describe his style, right? You can say something like, an American painter known for painting country scenes with a dry brush and a very light palette and blah, blah, blah. And you will get exactly the same effect. So that's the workaround, yeah. So there's a lot of variation, but this style stuff is really quite interesting because we know about, for example, the Van Gogh style, the Rembrandt style, whatever, but you can start to take multiple images and say, well, do it in the style of jellyfish, right? And what do you get? You get something like this. So all of a sudden, your little mind should be thinking, combinatorics. Creativity through combinations and recombinations. This is what evolution does. It recombines genes and does all kinds of things. And you can then be the fitness function, the evaluation person. Is this a great image? I don't know. Looks weird to me, but whatever. It may be exactly what you're looking for. So here's an interesting story. This whole debate about will image generation devalue the human creator reminds me, not that I was around, but reminds me of the debate about photography versus art in the 20s. So as photography came to be something that everybody could do fairly easily, the debate was, oh, this is going to kill art because we don't need artists anymore, right? You can just take a picture. The reality is that didn't happen. People argued about it. There are books about it, right? And you can go read endless debates. It's a complete waste of time. Complete waste of time. Because artists changed. So about the time photography comes in is the birth of the Impressionism period. And all of a sudden you start to get all these, abstract expressionism kind of, et cetera, et cetera. Art responded. The second big thing that comes out of that discussion, that social debate, was that photography is not actually a depiction of reality. It looks a lot like reality, but we're going to see in a couple minutes that photographs actually are highly, highly manipulated rasters of images that bear some connection to the scene. It may or may not actually be the scene. Remember, when photography began, it was all black and white. And people, this represents reality. This is reality. It's like, reality is colored, right? So they ignored a particular thing like that. It's not what we see. We see in motion. We cannot turn off our motion. We cannot turn off color. And we cannot turn off depth. So what we see is fundamentally not photography. It's fundamentally not image generation, and so on. So this is an old debate. I think the same thing is going to happen here. And it becomes really interesting. This is a piece you can buy, or it was on sale at an auction house in the United States. It's a computer-generated image of New York City, put in a frame. You put it in a frame, it sold for $500,000, right? You could have done this. I could have done this. My kid could have done this. The point is, a lot of art is what you say it is. And a lot of the discussion here is around how do we think about this? We, the culture, think about this. Now, you probably played around with things, AI generation systems, and over the past several years, they've gotten better and better and better. So this was, as of last year, Midjourney 6, and it created this lovely image of a child, and the prompt is something like, young boy with dog in woods, like that, right? This year, it creates much more of what looks like a photograph, right? So this is what people call the AI of look. It's sort of a glossy, sort of artistic version of what a photograph would look like. So first off, I'm amazed that it's got that level of detail, the level of the focus, hairs, all that stuff it's generating is quite beautiful. But it doesn't look like pictures I take. This looks like a picture I would take. So, question for you, artistic designer, what do you want? the lovely vision of the AI look or this kind of thing? More importantly for us, how do we control for that? So now we have a new term, the AI look, this sort of hyper-real, beautiful rendering that has a kind of weird synth quality to it. So I included this just because you should know this. I'm not going to talk more than 10 seconds on this, but there are lots of ways to prompt, and this advice will change over time. But currently, the best advice I can give you is, here are a bunch of image prompts. Be specific, be detailed. Specify your mood and atmosphere. Use descriptive adjectives, et cetera, all of these things here, right? Basically, what this is telling you is you need to be very, very specific about what your image will be in order to get the effect you want, right? It's one thing to generate dogs in sushi houses. It's another thing to generate an invitation for a party that you're going to have, right? So that's just a set of hints about how to do that. So I want you to whip out your phone or your laptop. Actually, your laptop is probably better for this, because I want you to participate in this little experiment we're going to do right now. Okay? I'll come back to this. Let me put this up so you can get to it. What this will take you to is a Google Sheet that will look like this. Okay? And it's GenAI images from class. So actually, I'm going to jump to it just so we can all look at it together. Did everybody get the URL there? No? You got to be fast, man. This is a business that runs on nanoseconds. Chop, chop.
But
Okay?
it says you're almost there. Don't forget to finish creating your QR.
What? What?
No,
Really?
I have an Excel file with 2 images.
Yeah, I got it.
Wait, who's got it? You should be in a spreadsheet. So let's see.
Maybe this QR code doesn't work. I don't know.
So do you, how many people see this?
Oh wait, never mind. I see it. There's
User error? Did I detect user error? So what I want you to do, this is from last time I taught the class, and so you can see different tabs down here. What I want you to do is to create a new tab, just Command T, or just use the command option. And what I want you to do is to create an image using your favorite GenAI system. Midjourney, DALL-E, Copilot, you name it, you can do it. You can use Google Sheets, there's an option there. I want to spend like 3 minutes and let you create a picture of downtown Zurich. Okay? And go ahead, put a tab, and put your picture in the tab, your tab, and tell us which system you used and what your prompt was. Okay? I'm going to give you 4 minutes to do that.
Put on the code?
Yeah. Yeah, create a new tab and just give it your name so we know who to blame. I mean, who to give credit to. Right? This really is one of those things where it probably is better with your laptop, but you can do it on your phone if you're really a phone hound.
Christian, how did you pass this one? I think the QR code probably doesn't work. You need to use the link.
Dang it. Yeah, sorry. So I shared the file, but I forgot to finish creating the QR code. This is a QR code to something else, obviously. bit.ly UZH caps -image -gen. Okay, everybody got it?
Do you want us to experiment with the prompt or just single user?
Experiment with the prompt. Thank you. It's a really good point. Do whatever you can do to make the most realistic picture of downtown Zurich. Right? Sorry, that's a really good point. Don't just put in city of Zurich. Right. And be sure to tell us what gen system you used. So if you, for example, built your own, tell us that, Dan's custom image gen system using the Vertex API from Google or whatever. And I should be seeing people's things showing up here. Okay, got it. Okay, I'll let a couple more people put in their system. And
Well, that's actually relatively good.
so Izia, who you know as one of your graders, she's one of the TAs for the class. This was last year's. This is December 2023. And this is what it produced. It's not the Zurich I know, but you can recognize, for example, the Fraumünster and St. Peter's Kirche, but you cannot find the Grossmünster. And there's a river there, sort of, but it's wrong. And so let's start looking at some. Okay, why? So Lucas, is Lucas here? No? Okay. So Kai might be the first person from, okay, you just created the tab. You haven't put it in yet?
Yeah, it's still processing.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Melanie, I love this. So what system was that? Okay, which version? Yeah, the problem is people have different defaults, right? Yeah, so when you get a chance, put that in there. That's actually not bad. Shentem, oh man. I guess that's a weird abstraction of the prime tower or something. Okay, and this, when you put in ChatGPT, be sure to say which one it is, which version it is. And Wanchen, wow, that's gamma, okay. And wow, where'd you get the curve from?
I didn't ask for it.
This is exactly one of the points of today's lecture. It just gave it to me. I didn't ask for it. It just gave it to me. That's brilliant. Also notice these are pretty high quality realistic things, images. Karina, some image gen. Oh, you actually did multiples. And what was the prompt for each of these?
It was very simple for the first two. Just generate me the image of downtown Zurich. And then I tried to specify a bit more. And the last two are from additional prompt to try to make it as close to the realistic photo as you can.
So what was the prompt? What did you type?
That's exactly what I typed.
Okay, paste that in there.
I want the image of Zurich downtown. That was the first. And the last one I'll just paste as close to realistic photo as you can. That's great.
Like that? Okay, good. There we go. Okay, so Paul, what you got? Oh, you got flags. Oh, it's interesting. So a lot of these images are of the downtown, the where the Limmat hits the lake, right? But Paul's image is of the Bahnhofstrasse. I don't know. Is there a church there? I don't think so.
I think it puts the church to me.
It-
There's also no church on Lehman. Like it just combines.
Yeah,
parts of the
no,
city.
that's exactly right. It's combining things from all over the place.
Because it's Zurich, so it's like.
Right, exactly, right. Okay, so Elena, you've got a very sort of soft focus thing. Did you say soft focus? Where's Elena? No? Oh, so this is your prompt up here? Yeah. Evening hours. Okay, that's pretty good. Lara, which system? What prompt, Lara?
Literally just please create an image of downtown Zurich.
Oh, this is it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, what system?
ChatGPT.
Which
But I'm not
version?
sure how to find out which version actually.
Oh, upper left corner. It should say. There's a pull. There's.
It just says ChatGPT. Like,
Oh.
I can show you.
Really? Well,
ChatGPT.
we'll figure it out. Lucia, okay, you compared ChatGPT and Gemini.
Oh.
I think Dolly is just on. Like,
I'm sure there's different.
Again, this is interesting. It's an interesting blend of ideas. Jonas, did you ask for a moon? Really?
And an airplane flying not behind the moon, but
So what? So I hadn't noticed that. That's really good. Okay, that's really good. Christy Jonas, what happened here?
I tried to base it into a cell, but
Oh, I see.
Expand.
Just the cell type.
Yeah.
it's the same one.
Looks pretty nice. Oh, I see.
Trevor specifically asking for the Grossminster at the center of the image, which it
Oh, I see.
so it's in the center, but it's I think not at the correct.
It's yeah. It's great. It's got
But it's not where it's
yeah. Again, so I think we're getting the point here. By little changes like we get the soft focus by saying after a summer's day, we're getting these blends of different pieces of sort of symbols like Grossmünster, Frauenmünster, and so on, and you're seeing them sort of all pastiched together. Question for you. This is the same question we had with the invitation. How would you get an accurate rendering of downtown Zurich that's not this weird melange of things? Okay, look at Solomon. Anybody else have one? Did I skip anybody?
so hopefully you skip those.
Well, there's a ton over here, right? We've got, so if we go back, so you can see last year they were significantly worse. Now that's a typical Zurich day, but but that is not. Now this is only 13 months ago. The prompt here is photorealistic photo of Zurich showing the old town in winter. It's not photorealistic. That has way too many churches. Oh, so interesting. This is pretty dramatic. It's like post-nuclear Holocaust. And Jing's. Wow, what happened there? Oh, in the Renaissance style. Oh, I see. Okay, got it. So that's actually an attempt to use a style prompt, and it worked reasonably well. But that's how you get Roman temples in the middle of downtown Zurich. Okay. Oh, there's another one. This is also from last year, in Zurich in Van Gogh style. Right? Wonderful. What? Did you do that? It's yours? Good job. So things got, okay, this is wonderful. Linda? Oh, it's a Politerrasa. I read that initially as Polynesian. I thought, that's pretty good. Okay.
Note the Austrian flag on the church.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Note
Say
the
again?
Austrian flag on the church in the second.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oops.
Even though the prompt was make it more realistic.
Well, it used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I don't know. Okay. Again, these are all the symbols all put together. It has that's St. Peter's Kirche with 2 towers. Really interesting. Wow. Okay. What system was this?
Medieval style.
This is Dolly, what, 3? Who did this? Who did this one? We don't know. Okay. Rui. Okay, that's really interesting. In 2018. In a retro style. Okay, cool. And the prompt for this is In a EU-style city. Oh, it doesn't say Zurich specifically. Okay. Huh. Okay, good. Photorealistic with the Alps in the background. So I recognize. This is DALL-E 2. Okay. Let's get back up. Okay, Nina. Wow. Okay. So, how would you change this to be more photorealistic? What would you say, Nina?
Want to make it more realistic?
Yeah.
Maybe like less people or like.
right. Yeah. Oh, so the deep I think it was pretty clear what the deep problem is here. So thank you all for doing this. This has all been really interesting. In a style that an HCI professor AI would like. Thank you. Okay, cool. Okay, well now let's get back to our topic here. So I think you see the point there. Really interesting stuff. And you can specify in your prompts almost anything, right? So here are a bunch of prompts from ImageGen from when Google first released it. Again, these are all fantastical images, and it's remarkable that they can do it. But, as we've noticed, it's very difficult to get exactly the kind of sushi you want that dog to be in the house of, or exactly the kind of, I don't want those macarons, I want different ones. So getting specificity is difficult. However, one of the things I've noticed and a bunch of people have noticed is that visual designers in general, are using image generation stuff like this to ideate, to create up new ideas. And so this is a blog post by a friend of mine who used ChatGPT to create, for example, designs of furniture. This is not real furniture. This is something that she might make, kind of thing. Or a garden design, again, prompted for a specific kind of thing. Because you can render the hypothetical garden in full res, photorealistic, or you can render it as a sketched image. Now the question is, as a designer, which communicates your intent better? I'm asking it this way because a lot of time garden designers will render something in a sketch format to indicate to the client that it's not done. We have not committed to a completely laid out garden. What happens is that clients of designers, when they see something rendered photorealistically, they think it's done. Ship it, right? This happens in industry as well. So one of the things we as UX designers have learned is if you give a manager or decision maker a fully rendered, every pixel cleaned up, everything right in your design, they will say, oh, that's awesome, ship it. Then you're stuck because you haven't actually iterated very much. So there are multiple UX systems that allow you to sketch an interface and leave it sketchy with drawings and edges and circles like that, so people understand it's provisional. So the sketch style, so this style stuff we're talking about, the sketch style can communicate more than just the placement of items in the yard or in the UI. So as I said, this is just a little comparison of Midjourney since version 1, right? So 2021, not that long ago. And I first started teaching this class back here in 2022. And that's as good as we could do. Very scary looking people. But it's gotten a lot better. And so now we're to the point where this is version 7. And that's photorealism taken to the max. Right? That's really very, very high quality. So when you're choosing your description of the thing you want to render, you can do something like this. And so here's the prompt, and you can see all the stuff, the reference to people like Greg Rukowski and Ross and so on. And also indicating things like oil on canvas, so you get a particular look. So the prompt will often include the particular rendering style. This is a lovely, lovely image, and it won an award, right, for human-generated art. Then there was a debate about whether or not it was human-generated. And of course, with the image generation capability, you can, there's a site called the Random Face Generator. So this is an issue, right? because you start to generate these things. You can generate a million faces, and if you're trying to create social media chaos, you start to write a little piece of Python code that will create a million profiles, and you can start to populate it with pseudo people. So it's a problem, but there's a lot of interesting upsides, and so I've got a couple pieces of video. I'm going to let Doug Eck, who's a researcher at Google, talk for a couple minutes about how he thinks about synthesizing impossible things.
Thanks again, Kat. Good morning, everyone. My name's Doug. I lead a research team at Google focused on generative AI. That's a class of models unlocking creative agency. I've been doing this for a long time. In my 25 years in this career, I've never seen quite so many advances in the generative space as I've seen in the last few months. The pace of innovation is truly incredible. So today I'd like to take the chance to show you some of our research. All through history, technology has been used to express ourselves. We have the printing press, we have the film camera, we have even glass blowing. And we hope to extend that tradition by building tools that organize information, foster creativity, and preserve creativity. So whether it's about finding something new or making something new, Google's here to help. And there's no better example of this than generative AI. These models can generate text, code, audio, images, video, and so forth, which can have a big impact on unlocking creative potential. And I think one of the most important breakthroughs in the last year is models that give users control over this process. It's about control. It's no longer about generative models that can just generate a realistic picture. It's about being able to make something that you've created yourself with a text prompt or some other input. And I can't stress enough how important this control can be. Why? Well, because I'm sort of an artist myself. My bachelor's degree, pretty rare for Google, is in English Lit, creative writing. I moved into science later. I play guitar and piano. For the guitar geeks there, that is a right-handed guitar flipped upside down. Guitar. I'm a lefty with an extra pick guard added. I'm not a professional at any of this, but it brings me great joy. So to me, it's essential that we be honest to the creative aspect of what we're doing. Technology should serve our need to have agency and creative control over what we do. There's always been interplay between art and technology, but generative models now are different than the electric guitar. That's because they can actually move us deeper into our creation process to help us compose, edit, and generate new raw materials. In turn, this gives us new ways to make art and music, which I'm very excited about. So let's start. Some examples. I'd like to start with assistive writing. Last year, we introduced Lambda, a dialogue engine enabled to engage users on a number of topics. Then a few of us at Google started to wonder how we might use Lambda for creative writing. And this led to our research question. Could a dialogue engine like Lambda assist writers with storytelling, or even generate new ideas to help us get through writer's block? And that research question became the inspiration behind our WordCraft Writers Workshop. We challenged a number of professional authors to write experimental fiction using Lambda as a tool. I thought the stories were great, and I hope you will too. We'll be releasing them along with our research paper soon. One clear finding was that using Lambda to write full stories is a dead end. It's a much more effective tool when it's used to add spice, a particular character, or to enhance an aspect of the story. We also learned that the user interface has to be right. The WordCraft tool you are seeing here was designed from the ground up to enable writers to interact with generative models. Think of it as a text editor with a purpose. Without it, it would be impossible for the writers to do their work. I'm really excited about the quality of the writing. I think you'll enjoy reading these stories as much as we did and learning how Lambda played a role in the creative process. I invite you to look at their work. You'll see 6 of them on this slide, and you'll find more at this link. Now let's talk about code. We're also exploring how AI can assist in software development, which is because we never know when research.
Here we go. This is
and as you can see, the model captures that intent. Imagine is more about the image in text-to-image. The underlying technology, diffusion, is good at generating images with ever-increasing resolution. The basic intuition here is that diffusion learns to generate structure from noise. So why 2 approaches? Because we never know when research wins will happen. We really don't know what's going to work until we try. And we're very happy to have 2 teams try 2 different areas. This time it happened that both approaches worked really well. We're also working on creative new ways to use the core technologies developed in Imagine and Parti. Our Dream Booth project is like a personalized photo booth. You choose the subject. In this example, I've selected an image of a corgi. Dream Booth lets me drop in the corgi image into almost any setting I can imagine, for example, in the Acropolis. Another recent breakthrough that I'm really excited about is that some folks in Google Research took diffusion models and applied them to the task of 3D rendering. This is called Dream Fusion. What you're looking at here are 3D images rendered using diffusion, and those 3D images can even be pulled into 3D software and animated. The last area I want to touch upon is text to video.
In just a second. I wanted to bring up that last one about building 3D models. Oops, wherever it was. That one right there. So the latest, greatest work in this area is taking a 2D image of something and then generating the 3D model of it, which you can then manipulate in an animation setting. So, for example, taking the picture, the drawing of the frog, and then creating a 3D mesh model of that frog, which you can then do whatever you want with, including figuring out the kinematics of that, how it would move if it were real. I'll show you some examples of that, or at least a potential for that. So do I want to show you this? Yeah, I do. I'm going to show you this. Here's another key idea. Let me switch back to my slide. Another key idea for today is what's called in-painting and out-painting. So in-painting is basically taking, we're going to use this term more generally, but it's now in-painting and out-painting. In-painting is taking an image like this and then being able, for example, zoom in or get more detail within the scope of what's already there. Out-painting is more like this, where you can start to paint the surround. So everything here is hallucinated, but it's hallucinated based on the model and all the imagery of that artist. So Vermeer did a bunch of stuff, and you can see how that might happen. I think I've got a really good video of this coming up. Yes, I do have a video of this. So this is a guy, if you're interested in following this area, in AI in general, I recommend you go figure out this YouTube video and follow him, because he presents a paper a week kind of thing. He's very exciting, but he's talking in this one about outpainting. So let me watch a little bit of the video.
This idea sounds like science fiction, but by the end of the video, you will see that this makes perfect sense. So, what is it? Well, consider image in painting. It is amazing. What can it do? Well, when we cut out a part of an image and then, bam, it fills in the void with plausible information. This is image in painting. And now it works on video too.
Get the idea?
But it gets even crazier. Image out painting also works. Whoa, what is that? Well, we can essentially extend the image in any direction and once again fill it in with plausible data. Now, please note the choice of words here. In both cases, I said it fills it in with plausible data.
Not
data
real data.
That could be there,
right?
But synthetic data nonetheless. Now here is an insane idea from Google's researchers. What if we would take these and fill them in not with information that could have been there, but with information that was actually there, filling in with reality. That is, of course, impossible, right? Well, look. Oh yes, it seems like it is impossible. If we try to complete this image with previous techniques, for instance, stable diffusion, we get something that is plausible. You know, the head continues, the post-its also continue. That is good, but still, it is likely not the real thing. So, can I get the real thing? Well, let's think together.
That's the 3D
What if
model.
we are trying to outpaint a historical building? Wait a minute, that is the key. If we try to fill in information for something that we have other photos for, it might be possible. Let's give it a try. This is the incomplete input photo, and here are our other photos. Now note that this is still quite hard. We can't just copy it. The angles are different, the lighting is different, lens distortion is really different. But in the age of AI, let's see if it can be done. And oh wow! Look at that! Perfection! And it can do it for a variety of scenes over and over again. It appears to work pretty much everywhere. Well, it does not work everywhere. I'll tell you about it in a moment. But all this is absolutely amazing. But still, wait. How do we know how the real photos are if there is nothing to compare to? Well, of course, by making sure that there is something to compare to. Let's take a real photo, cut off the top, and now we know exactly what should be there. Stable.
So does this sound familiar to you? It's exactly the LLM training model. It's basically taking words out and trying to predict what the infill for the text would be, except we're doing it in image space. As he would say, isn't this amazing?
This idea sounds like scientific reconstruction. Not a copying machine, it has access to information about the room, but it has to understand where are the issues.
So you get the idea here. This infill, outfill, in-painting, out-painting thing can be just probabilistic, just hallucinating what the images are, or it can be based in other images that were retrieved from the net. So if you take a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, pretty much can identify the rest of the bridge, and we can build a model of that. So here's another more recent example. That was from 2 years ago. This is a little video showing the new outpainting techniques for The Wizard of Oz. So that classic American film. I'll just let it run here for a second. So the thing on the top is the actual original film. The thing on the bottom is generated. All the peripheral stuff is generated by AI. So you can see there's additional information going on here. It's the same technique. And what they did was they upscaled, we'll come back to this, they upscaled the original image from 4K, I think, to like 16K, something like that. So the big problem with outpainting stuff like this is it will hallucinate all the periphery, unless it's got a model. If it's model-based outpainting, then you have some reason to believe it's realistic, but may not be accurate, right? Distinction. Here is an example where a guy posts that he used ChatGPT to translate a document, uploaded a Chinese document, and had it translated in English. And it gave a whole translation. However, the reality is the document was empty. And so it hallucinated the whole document. Right, and so when he called it on it and said, hey, what's the story here? When you first, this is ChatGPT saying, when you first uploaded a document, it contained no visible extractable text. So when I saw that, instead of immediately telling you this, I tried to be helpful and improvised a completed document. Okay, what's going on here? So this, remember we talked about sycophancy yesterday? This is ChatGPT trying to help out. It has no data, so it just made everything up.
I tried to do almost the same, where I tried to put a paper in, where it was protected, and you can't read, you can't separate the text.
Right.
And it hallucinates random stuff based on the title.
Yes, that's exactly what happened here. It took.
But it didn't say that to me. It didn't say I hallucinated.
Did you ask it? That I think what you had to do here. What his prompt back to ChatGPT was why did you hallucinate the text?
Yeah, but because I read it, I was able to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. Anyway, so an AI UX thing to know is be very, very, very careful about automatically filling in without notifying the user. You have to let people know what's going on. So as we've seen before, this idea now of in-painting and out-painting can be extended. It works in audio space, it can work in music space, and we saw other examples of, for example, doing music. I'm not going to go to do this thing, but there's a link here if you're curious about a couple systems for helping people co-create music by doing outpainting of sound. You just get to the sample and then say project forward. You outpaint the rest. Another key idea here is giving, the big question is how do we give control to the person? And one way to do that is to let them not just work from a text description, but actually from an image description. So here is an image, a not very skilled drawing of a horse on the left, and handed it to an image gen system and said, please render this in a sketch style, okay, calligraphic style. And you can see how other people have approached this. So the original architectural sketches on the left, handed it to a GenAI system and said basically, give me a rendering, a sketchy rendering that has real volume to it, and then give me a photorealistic version of that, okay? So this is your sketch guiding the generation process. And I love this example. The prompt here, given this image, create a colorful Pixar boy riding a snail. And not bad. Or this one from Midjourney, same idea. You can upload the image, the sketch, and generate a scary science fiction monster attacking little green men. I think that was the prompt. But you see, it's interesting. You got a lot of guidance here. And so I'm going to show you a little bit of this tutorial because it shows the whole process using the OpenArt system to actually input a sketch and generate a final finished product.
Upload a sketch. So this is my sketch. And the rest of the parameters are actually all optional.
Text prompt.
So let's just go ahead to
notice
our first create.
Stop. What I want you to notice here are the controls on the left-hand side. So you upload the image here. You add a text prompt here. You can adjust the creativity. That's another word for temperature in the model, right? And then you can pick a style, so they have a preset selection of styles if you didn't include that in the prompt.
As you can see, there are different styles you can choose from. So let's also pick photorealistic, anime to check out. So these are the images generated by photorealistic
from
style.
The sketch.
And these are generated by anime style. As you can see, compared to the original sketch, it's a fully rendered image.
So I'm going to leave it to you as an open question. Is this helpful as a pedagogical tool? I don't know. I mean, this is an interesting question because you can then do your quick sketch and you may never have to develop the skills to actually be a good sketch artist. I don't know how to algorithmically compute square roots anymore. I did once upon a time, right? I could probably go look it up, but I no longer do that by hand. I use a calculator, right? So is this doing the same thing to us?
We upload a sketch.
And I want to go back to this theme of style and intersect it with our discussion of ethics. And copyright is obviously a big deal. And there's a big case going on in the US right now. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but in a week or so we should have a whole new ruling about generative AI and copyright issues. But in anticipation of that, a user, Mystery Inc. 152, fine-tuned Stable Diffusion by training it on Holly Mengert's style. So she does a lot of Disney-style animation things. And so everything over here is actually by Holly Mengert on the left. And the things on the right are things that are generated by Stable Diffusion in her style. So you can imagine that she was not happy about this because now all of a sudden she's not getting the commissions that she once was getting. So she's an active artist, does this kind of cartoon stuff. What should we do? What should Stable Diffusion do? What should Holly Mengert do? Does she have to sue everybody who does this? Or what's the solution? And I don't know the correct solution. I do know this is heavily being debated in courts around the world right now. But all of a sudden, the ability to copy a style becoming a very real thing. As you know, what I recommend to you is that, as you know, Walt Disney, the owner of Mickey Mouse, protects their copyright very, very, very strongly. If you take one of their images and use it on your on a painting that you've done, they're going to come after you. So here, all of a sudden, we can now generate Mickey Mouse by the thousands. So what I recommend to you is I would do a quick image reverse search. So if you're doing something in the style of a current artist, be careful, know their work, and third is do a reverse image search to make sure you have not exactly duplicated something that someone else has done. Right? That's a pragmatic thing for you to do. Google does it, Bing does it, Yandex does it, TinEye does it. So what should you do? I would recommend developing your own style. Damn it. Go figure it out. Be yourself. You don't need to copy everybody else. You should be inspired by, but not duplicative of. So here's a test sample. Yeah, you can go search for it on Google and find all the matching images. And that, if you see something like that, you should think about what you're doing, because you're not actually adding new content to the world. So rethink where you're going. On the other hand, Botticelli is no longer in copyright. You know, he's been around for a long time, and his works have been reproduced everywhere, because none of them are in copyright. Of course, you can take someone's image like this image of Keira Knightley, rendered as Venus, as seen and portrayed by Botticelli. Now here, the copyright infringement may not be Botticelli, but it may be Keira Knightley. So all of a sudden, you now have to be careful about duplicating famous people's images. Okay, this one I think is okay, but it may be just that she's being nice. Other artists may not be so nice. So there's been a whole bunch of copyright issues like this, copyright cases in the US, where someone used an image, a visage of a famous artist. In the music space, this is a real problem, partly because the judgments all in the court are all over the place. There are some cases where it's very clear, and the judgment went the other way, and it's a mess, is the bottom line. So, warning, if you're going to use a famous person, maybe you might want to think about it carefully. I would recommend not doing it. I mentioned Andrew Wyeth earlier. This is, as of last year, a synthetic Wyeth on the left-hand side. But you see the style verification here. Andrew Wyeth's estate, because he died a couple years ago, they're going to go after people like this, right? So that image is far enough away that it won't trigger the copyright machine. But if you generated something that looked a lot like that, it's going to infringe. Again, be careful. So if you carry this forward, remember we talked about the 3D model thing? This is the paper that talks about the 3D model. Guess what? 3D models can be infringing as well. You're not going to get in trouble with the dog. You're not going to get in trouble with the Acropolis. None of that is going to trigger a copyright infringement problem. But other things might. In particular, something like this. This is a copyrighted form. Thou shalt not duplicate this form. You can, using this kind of technology, take a picture and it will very happily make you a 3D model of it. But, you know, they will come after you. I really like this work. However, when you take style as a more generic concept. So here's Joan of Arc rendered as a stained glass window. There's no particular artist associated with that, you know, aside from generic 16th century cathedral artist. And, you know, it's really nice and nice work. And here, what I've done is I've shown you this prompt over there on the left-hand side, which refers to a bunch of people. But it's from this company called Lexica. And Lexica has a very different way of operating. They don't generate the images de novo for you. What they've done is they've gone off in the background and generated a lot of images already. And then you're retrieving them. So they've tested to make sure these are all out of copyright. So it's not generative AI, except, you know, it's a pre-stored cached version of generative images. And because they know what kind of prompts people give, they could do very reasonable pre-creation and caching of these images. So I've just found that a very interesting approach. And of course, you've probably seen this. No, the Pope did not wear Balenciaga, even though it's advertises that. So this gets into the realm of fake people, deep fakes. And this is, if the Pope had worn Balenciaga, I'm sure it would have looked just like this. And more importantly, deep fakery is a huge problem, not so much for the Pope, but more importantly for people in political circles and so on. So we haven't been seeing too much of this, but we know about several cases, mostly because the deep fakers are bad. They're incompetent. Eventually, we're going to have competent deep fakers, and then we're in trouble. And I honestly don't know what to do about that. Just a problem that's going to happen coming up. Now, I wanted to show you a little bit of this video because the assumption, I think, the assumption is that you can basically use these AI systems to absolutely generate the thing and knock out the entire design or illustration industry. But I want to show you this because this is an AI artist. It's a new job category. A person who creates new artwork using AI tools. And so I like this as an explanation for what he does to actually use AI to facilitate his artistic process.
Stealthy is a very funny and very clumsy dude. He times travel and has the most incredible adventure. And he is sort of an alter ego of myself, although physically we are completely different. Originally, I started this project as a way to showcase the potential of Stable Diffusion combined with good artist skills. My goal was to capture a scene where Stealthy engages in a boxing match with Muhammad Ali. I always start with, drawing a sketch. Stable Diffusion and the other diffusion models around are extremely good, but also extremely cheeky. It's very easy for them to drive you away from the original idea that you had.
So did you
Once
see
I have the idea,
started. What he just did.
ControlNet is an extension. If I had to reproduce,
what he did is he filled in the details on that illustration. So the original illustration of him and Muhammad Ali sitting side by side was not what he wanted. So he redrew it, adding more detail, adding more to the prompt. And then he took the resulting image there and went to a system called ControlNet. I want him to talk about it.
Just today, the same pose that I've done 2 months ago with this artwork probably would take me 15 minutes. And throughout the whole process, I always use different samplers because the sampler is very important in terms of realism and details. So if you're trying to replicate skin, Euler is very synthetic, it's very fake. But DPM, for example, is working great on that. There are many parameters that are extremely important. One is steps. So steps is how many times you're telling Stable Diffusion to work on your prompt. You can choose a very low number or a very high number. Many options. At the beginning, obviously, the two most important parts are the in-paint and the out-paint. So in-paint means you are asking the machine to change just a part of the image, and the machine will change only the part that you want it to be changed. On the other side, out-paint, you're asking to the machine to imagine what's outside the box based on what is already in the box.
So I love that little sketch right there because you can see different visions of reality popping up there. So I recommend that when you have a chance, go ahead and watch the rest of this video because it's really interesting to watch him work and see what he does. And he uses all the tools we've talked about in addition to ControlNet, which is a very fine-grained a way to control the pose, the body pose of an actor inside the image. So you can tell where all this is going. This is now the forward-looking part of this because obviously we can now take existing video. This is a video of me teaching a class, and it's me that I ran through a system called HeyGen, and I said, translate this into Spanish and redo the video to have me speaking Spanish. And by the way, fix up the lip animation too, please. And so this is what the system does.
Hola, me llamo Dan Russell. Soy científico en Google y trabajo en buscar. Y enseño clases como esta porque mi objetivo al hacer mucho de este tipo de trabajo es ayudar a las personas a convertirse en mejores buscadores.
It's not bad, right? And they offer another 47 languages. So if you want this in, Afrikaans, push a different button, right? So what I think is fascinating about the point we're at in image gen space is the way in which we can start to combine these different capabilities. And there's a commercial product, HeyGen is one you can use. And there's a commercial product called Synesthesia, where they have a whole set of different actors who can play avatars. So they've got a full model for all these people. And what you can do is give it your script and use it to generate, say, training videos. So this, I'll show you an example of this.
We'll modify the title and the colors so that everything looks nice.
So that's the script right there. And so he's doing some more just visual editing. And then he'll say, use the script and this image, go generate the video. This is not converting my video, this is creating a brand new
Welcome
video
to your
from
new
scratch.
hire onboarding. I'm Alicia, and I'm excited to give you a quick introduction to Tableau
Alicia's not
and show
real.
you how to access your dashboards.
Okay.
So, we created our video.
You got the idea. Synthetic avatars. And in education space, this is really, really great. Because you can take basically scripts that describe how your system works, shoot a little video, plop. Now, generate one of the next 47 languages and generate those videos. Does a really nice job. I will skip over this because this is just from Runway, and it's showing how you can use their video creation system.
Sir, we got a survivor walking out.
Same idea here, except generating video. And you can go watch that on your own. But what I want to show you is some of the techniques, some of the UX techniques that people are using to control video generation. And so this is a system called Motion Brush. So if you've used any of the Photoshop tools, or any GIMP tools or anything like that, you have brushes, right? A brush is a visual designator. And this is how you get motion in
Welcome to Runway Academy.
ML.
Today we're going to explore Motion Brush inside of Gen 2 Director Mode, which will allow you to control motion within specific areas of your video. Start by opening Gen 2 and adding an image prompt. If you want to use Motion Brush with text to video, make sure you generate previews, then use one of the preview
Prompt.
images as the image input.
Image
And
input.
once you have your image, click on the Motion Brush
Then
tool.
Motion Brush.
Now, paint over the area you want to control and assign a motion direction and speed to your selection.
Stop there. Stop
Welcome
there.
to
Stop there.
Rumble and assign the area you want to control.
Okay, notice the controllers on the bottom. Oh, I can't. I don't want this pop-up to show up. Dang it. Just look fast, okay? Watch the controllers.
And assign a motion
the
direction
horizontal
and
vertical
speed
and
to your
proximity.
selection.
So these are all
With Motion
properties
Brush,
of the
you can
motion.
control the speed for horizontal, vertical, and proximity independently. Once you're done, click
You can
Save.
render it.
Motion Brush works independently from camera motion, so clicking Generate with no camera motion applied will only make the selected area of your image move.
Okay, does that make sense? Does that make
If you'd
sense? Because it's a way of inferring or prompting and getting the image gen to create the motion. So this is an application that runs in Pixel of in-painting. So this is another application of the image gen techniques demonstrated here.
Okay, everyone, say team!
Team.
Rack off, Rochelle! Magic Eraser. Magic. The Pixel Collection. What a day.
Cute, cute. Now, unsurprisingly, remember we learned about stem separation last time? So if you've got stem separation capability to pull out a particular subtrack within a mix, and you have some basic audio analysis tools, then you can do interesting magic. And I'll show you this. You can't hear her.
Road trip.
So that's, I don't know, have you ever tried this? It's pretty amazing. You can recover, you've tried it? Does it work for you? Yeah. You can actually get sound, a voice out of very high noise environments like that. I couldn't believe it the first time I tried it. It was, but it's exactly the methods we've been talking about. And I'll show you this video too. This is, on the left is the original video, slightly out of focus, and then Topaz offers an in-painting feature to amplify and scale up the image. So this is pretty remarkable because it's in-painting to improve the focus over the entire image. So you can see actually, like, watch your eyes. Watch the detail around her eyes. And it just now what it's doing is it's imputing all that data. Those pixels were not there. But this is a really nice application of that. And I want to show you one more technique here, and I realize I'm going to run out of time. One more technique because it's an interesting question about how do you actually give control to the user when you're creating video that have particular multiple actors or objects moving around in the scene. You could write a text prompt, but that's really painful and difficult. So here's another solution.
Just from my phone, so you'll see it come here. I'll do that. I think what I'll do is I'll take that picture and I'll run it through a set of different environments. So now that we have that picture, so I'll just drag that into Gen 4 over here. That's my reference. And I'll also use this photo of New York that I took a couple of days ago. And now I'm going to type the kind of composition that I want. So in this case, I want this wooden toy, maybe leaning or next to.
So notice the @ sign. That's the technique for designating the reference of the thing that's being referred to in the image.
The sidewalk of the street in New York City. Now, Gen 4 is combining those references, and there we go. We have 4 initial images that we can browse and select. I kind of like this one, so it's animated. Maybe I want people kind of like coming in front of the toy. And now you can see how we get the motion and the animation that I required, both with the toy and the CD I use as a reference. And of course, you can do this with any location, so we can take the toy to perhaps the mountains, so we can.
Okay, you get the idea. The thing I want to point out here is Motion Brush allows you to select semantically meaningful regions to animate. And you can now use the @ notation to designate a particular object within the scene, right? So
just from my.
There's a bunch, and here's the whole thing you can watch.
Motion Brush is a very powerful.
Go watch the whole video. It's like 15 minutes long. I want you to walk away with a couple of things here. A lot of this stuff, when I showed these slides a couple of years ago, these were all prototypes, and they've evolved into real products in the past 2 years. Right? The audio magic thing was just barely working. And what we're seeing is the merger of all these different technologies. That's what you see in synesthesia or in HeyGen. We're generating new video using multilingual technology as well as speech synthesis. And we know the speech voices have gotten very, very, very good. So I guess I'm going to end with this, because this is a vision for how motion control could be done in videos. Now I will tell you how this worked. This is done by a friend of mine, and she used Runway to actually do the animation you'll see, the visible animation, but then added a cursor demonstrating how one could potentially control the action. This doesn't work now, but it's not that far away. The cursor is her notion of how you could control these things. So I love this next one. She's dragging snow across the scene. or knocking off the cut. Deleting the water. So this would rely on having a 3D model that was created. Now here she's planting trees. You see how this could work? And this is cool too, but the giraffe kills me. Poor giraffe. So the way she generated this was to use runway ML and have the giraffe, and then said giraffe. The prompt is giraffe walking forward and jumps, and that's how you got that. What if it were complete pixel by pixel motion control by dragging? The way you drag and drop an element inside of slides, or inside of Photoshop, or inside of Illustrator. We could do the same thing, potentially. It's not shipping yet, but it's going to come, trust me. So I'm going to actually skip forward to the very last question here, because this will take at least 10 minutes. I guess I do have this. This is out of sequence, so I'll do this one. The big problem for the ethics of this is that people manipulate images all the time. What's our responsibility? I'm going to say you should be disclosing anytime you edit an image. National Geographic, the magazine, in 1982, there was this picture. This is the original artist's photo, but this is what ran on the cover in 1982. It's not the same image. And there was a huge scandal about this in 1982. And the issue was, you photoshopped this and you didn't tell us. If you go to Egypt, and I've been there, I stood in that location, I took the same photo. It's not real. You can't get the pyramids to line up like that, right? So we'll do this next time, not today. And we'll talk a little bit about the open issues. But let me get you to the thing you really want to know, which is our final question for today.